Hey guys, it's DT back with my latest acquisition. Today we are going to be looking at the brand new Flash premium format figure from Sideshow Collectibles. But before we get into the unboxing, I want to remind you guys to check out my new channel, DT's Geek Show. I've got some really cool stuff coming up on there. So if you're into comic books and collectibles, make sure to head over there and subscribe. So here we have the exclusive version. They made 600 of these. This is number 206. So I got this at the bargain basement price of $575. The collector's edition was $560, and that one had an edition size of $1,200. Now I know what you're saying, $575, that is not a cheap statue. However, with the prices of statues these days, $575 is definitely on the lower side. So with that being said, let's open this up. Okay, so we've got a relatively small box this time around. It says it weighs 17 pounds, so not extremely heavy. Okay, so here we have the box. We have the front view of the statue right there. We've got this cool lightning bolt effect, and then underneath that we've got some scenes from the comic book, which is a really nice touch. It continues over to the side, and then we've got the cool lightning bolt symbol with more comic book panels on the other side. Alright, so let's get this out of here. Okay, and here's what we get. So as you can see, there aren't a ton of parts. Flash himself is almost complete. He's only missing his hands and the little lightning bolts that go on his head. Okay, so here's a look at the base. It's rather compact, which is nice. We've got a broken up road. There's some bent up rebar coming out of the sides. Pretty cool texture and detail in there. And here's a look at the bottom. Flash, 206 out of 600. We've got this really deep keyhole and peg that goes into the very bottom, because Flash here has a really dynamic pose. Let's take a look at the Flash. He's got this really nice red paint job. Here's a look at his portrait. And his head is attached, so we don't have to worry about any seam lines in his neck. And of course, he's got his little Flash logo on his chest. Really cool belt. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is another Daniel Bell sculpt. I've reviewed several Daniel Bell pieces. All of them are amazing. Here's where he keys into the base. We have a peg down here, very large key. There were concerns that this statue could have leaning issues because his pose is so dynamic. I guess we'll just have to wait and see and hope they did their homework with the engineering. But as always with Daniel Bell pieces, very nice musculature, very cool dynamic pose, which is why I decided to pick this guy up. Here's a look at his right hand, and this is the hand that does not switch out, and it's going to be his front hand in this case. Looks really good, really nice fingers. And here is a look at his left hand. And this is the collector's edition, which is an open, empty hand. And then we have the exclusive, which is his hand holding Captain Cold's gun. Then we have a couple options with the lightning bolts or wings that go on his head. So here we have the more classic look, and then we have the more modern lightning bolts. Pretty cool. We'll have to try both out, see which one looks better. Okay, so that was the contents of the box. Let's put this guy together. Okay, we're gonna drop down the base. Flash is just going to key in with this very large key on the bottom. So the key was actually a little tricky to get in there. I did have to apply some force. So I wanted to make sure this was in there all the way, because obviously with this guy's pose, you want to make sure that the key is secure. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Let's give him his front hand. Right there. Give him his regular hand right now. And we'll give him the classic look. Bam. And here he is, the Flash. So the Flash first appeared in Showcase number 4 in 1956. It's actually a very significant book when it comes to the comic book world, not only because it's the first appearance of Barry Allen as the Flash, but it is the first comic book of the Silver Age. So definitely one I'm looking to add to the collection. So of course, Barry Allen becomes the Flash after he is struck by lightning, and a combination of that blast mixed in with some chemicals gave him the power of super speed. So let's start off here with the base. As I mentioned before, this is a broken up road base. I'm not sure if all of this damage was due to him, but we see all this rubble in the back caused by his immense speed. It's a very cool minimalistic base. It does have a lot of detail both in the surface, the texture, all the little rubble pieces. Here we have the little street markings, and then on the sides we have these pieces of rebar that stick out. I like all the different color shades in there, some browns and oranges, give it a really dirty, rusty look. Moving up to Flash, he's got these really cool yellow boots on, as you've heard me say in previous videos. I love the way Daniel Bell sculpts his shoes. Great detail on the outsides as well as on the soles. I like how his calf muscle is fully flexed as he's pushing off. The musculature in his legs is spot on. We've got some nice line details in there to accentuate some of that muscle contouring. We can see all these little folds and creases around his knee area and right butt cheek. We've got this lightning bolt belt that does a nice job at breaking up his suit. And there's some great lines and definition in his upper body as well. We've got the matching lightning bolts around his forearms, and I really like the lightning bolts on his ears. I think it ties in nicely with the logo on his chest as well as the lightning bolts on the other parts of his body. His portrait looks good. He's got a very focused look in his eyes, very relaxed, closed mouth. Looks like he's cool, calm, and collected. Doesn't look like he's overexerting himself. Because he's almost completely one piece, there aren't too many seams to worry about. We do have the two, one on his forearm here and one on his wrist on his left hand, and they blend in pretty well with the suit. His hands are on the larger side. I think it might be mainly for effect, or maybe this guy just has big hands. The paint looks very good. The shading looks great. They got a little bit sloppy where the shoe meets the pavement right here, but that's a very small nitpick and can probably be fixed up pretty easily. Okay, so let's move on to the pose of this guy. And there was a lot of controversy when it came to the body positioning of him. So overall, I think this is the best depiction of the Flash actually running fast. I've looked at other statues, and to me, they don't seem like they're putting much effort, and they're kind of too relaxed. Now, I get that the Flash probably doesn't need to worry about form or effort when it comes to speed, but if I'm spending a lot of money on a Flash statue, he better look like he's running. For example, here's a look at the Prime 1 New 52 Flash. And while it's a flashy looking piece, it does not scream speed to me. In fact, it doesn't even resemble sprinting. He's got his arms kind of karate chopping the air, he's kind of hunched over a bit, and he's actually landing on his heel, which is something you don't do when you're sprinting. So when most people see this statue, they immediately think of a starting position, with the Flash coming right out of the starting blocks here. I used to be a sprinter in high school, and the more I look at this piece, I'm not only reminded of the start, but also different stages of the sprint. And I'm thinking that Mr. Bell gave us a combination of these different sprint elements to give us the most dynamic and aesthetically pleasing pose. So let's break it down a bit. So the low angle of his body definitely suggests that he is just starting to run and getting into his acceleration mode. So when you start a race, you typically have a low position to maximize the amount of drive that you have. As you get closer to your top speed, your body starts to become more upright. We've also got the section of the street being pushed up, almost as if he's pushing against the starting blocks. Now there are some things here that don't quite fit in with proper sprinting technique. One is his upright head position. Here he's looking straight ahead, where you'd normally start with your focus on the ground and then slowly raise your focus as you pick up speed. But this isn't a race here, and I think that the upright head probably looks a lot better on a statue than one staring at the ground. And the second thing I noticed is that his front foot here is slightly pointed. Generally, when it comes to sprinting, you want to have dorsiflexion in your ankle. Now that means instead of having plantar flexion as seen here with the foot more pointed, you want to flex your foot so you can load up your muscles and explode off of your next step. Again, I think they chose to not flex the foot here because aesthetically the pointed foot, though not technically correct, often looks better than a flexed one. The Flash here also has a very dynamic twist to his body. His lower body sort of goes off to the right, where his upper body twists towards the left. Now this definitely accentuates the movement in this piece, even though proper sprinting technique would suggest that you run with your shoulders and hips squared to the front. And finally, we have the notorious left arm. Now a lot of people thought the left arm looked a bit long, but I don't think it's really an issue with the actual length of his arm. So we have to take into consideration that because his body is twisted, his left shoulder is a lot farther back than what we usually see in a sprint position. His arm here is also very elongated. So typically sprinters have a 90-degree angle here in their arm. We see it here in his forward arm, so it would make sense that his back arm would have a similar angle. I have seen competitive sprinters run with elongated arms like this, but they usually don't win. So this instead reminds me more of a relay baton exchange position. We have his left arm reaching back with his palm slightly twisted upward, almost as if it was ready to accept the baton. And I think that's kind of the idea with the alternate hand. It clearly appears that the Flash is holding the gun much like he would hold a baton, with his hand gripping it on the upper portion of the barrel. So I think overall this is a great dynamic pose. It's not 100% technically correct, but we have to remember that this is a comic book depiction we're talking about and not real life. And there are bound to be alterations and exaggerations in order to give us the most dynamic and eye-pleasing piece. And I think this achieves that with flying colors. I mean, reality is not always the prettiest thing to look at. So when it comes to positioning this guy, I think you're going to definitely want to have him in a profile or sort of an angled profile look in order to get the most out of this dynamic pose. Okay, so that was the Flash Premium Format figure from Sideshow Collectibles. Let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to check out my other channel, DT's Geek Show, for more cool collectibles content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.